What's up, everybody? It's your boy Sir Splash, and today for a 2000 sub special, I'm gonna do something unique and controversial. I wanted to do something that I know no one else has done before, and I found it. So today, I will be power scaling every gender listed on the gender fluid support. This might get taken down. I don't know. I don't know how sensitive YouTube is. I think it's hilarious, just how many genders there's supposed to be. Again, if you identify as any of these, good for you. I don't care if you do that. Just as long as you don't try to make me care about it. But anyways, I've only seen like 5 or 10 of these, but I'm gonna read the gender and then I am gonna try to power scale it, or at least give my take on how powerful that gender would be. So first one, a B-May gender, a gender that is profound, deep, and infinite. So we're already possibly at infinite 3D universal. Meant to resemble when one mirror is reflecting into another mirror, creating an infinite paradox. Okay, so you have like a crazy shadow clone jutsu, infinite in scope, where you could go maybe multiversal if you wanted to stretch it, but we'll go infinite 3D. I think that's fair. Next one, Adama's gender. By the way, the first one might be up there for one of the strongest we see. I don't know. Adama's gender, a gender which refuses to be categorized, possibly outerversal because you can't be defined by a label. I don't know. Arrow gender, a gender that is influenced by your surroundings. Kind of sounds like this is what Darwin from Marvel would be, since he adapts to his surroundings. What a beast. Aesthetic gender, a gender that is derived from an aesthetic, also known as vid gender. I don't know. Depends on the aesthetic, I guess. Affectua gender, a gender that is affected by mood swings. This would be Hulk. So I'm gonna guess at least Hulk level. Willow Ball Star solar system level. Agender, the feeling of no gender, absence of gender, or neutral gender. So they actually have a gender for not having a gender. That's Inception. Agender flux, being agender and having fluctuating feelings of masculinity, of femininity, but not male or female. I guess you would be a duality right there. Alexigender, gender that is fluid between more than one gender, but the individual cannot tell what those genders are. Not that powerful. Alias gender, a gender which is removed from common gender descriptors and guidelines. You would be outside the norm of a regular gender. So if a regular man's like peak human, you'd be above peak human male. Amari gender, a gender that is changes depending on who you're in love with. Not that powerful. Ambigender, defined as having the feeling of two genders simultaneously without fluctuation, meant to reflect the concept of being ambidextrous, only with gender. Not that powerful. I will, by the way, post the link in the description if y'all don't believe I'm actually reading this stuff, or like I'm making it up. Ambinek, identifying as both man and woman, yet neither at the same time. What a beast. You're not actually... you are, but you aren't at the same time. You is. Kind of like Dark Side. Amica gender that changes depending on which friends you're with. So, like, if you're with the Avengers, you might be a different gender than if you're with the Justice League. So, it's kind of wild. Androgen, sometimes used in the case of androgynous presentation, describing the feeling of being a mix of both masculine and feminine, and sometimes neutral. Not that powerful. If I butcher any of these, forgive me. I don't really care if I mispronounce them. I'm doing my best. Anisagender, feeling like a certain gender yet being more comfortable identifying with another. You are a super spy at that point. Angenital, a desire to be without primary sexual characteristics, without necessarily being genderless. One may be both agenital and identify as another gender alongside. At that point, you're just trying to complicate your life. Not that powerful. Anogender, a gender that fades in and out but always comes back to the same feeling. You can't destroy it. Seems like you would have to destroy it on a conceptual level. That's pretty OP in durability. And non-gender, a gender that is unknown to both yourself and others. It's beyond human comprehension. I'm going autoversal on that one, or at least above 10D or 24D. Anti-gender, a protean gender which has the potential to be anything, but is formless and motionless, and therefore does not manifest in any particular gender. Okay, this might be the strongest. It's boundless, formless. It is autoversal for sure. And anxiety gender, a gender that is affected by anxiety. That sucks. That's actually like a depowering state. Apagender, a feeling of apathy towards one's gender which leads them to not look any further into it. They can't look towards it, bro. They don't care. Apconsu gender, a gender where you know what it isn't, but not what it is. The gender is hiding itself from you, so your power is actually locked away from you gender-wise, so pretty weak. Aster gender, gender that feels bright and celestial. You would scale to at least celestial level. I'd say above 4D. That's pretty powerful. Astral gender, gender that feels connected to space. Infinite 3D confirmed. Audi gender, a gender that can only be understood in the context of being autistic. That's a little weird. Autogender, a gender experience that is deeply personal to oneself. Doesn't matter. It's not that strong. Axigender, when a person experiences two genders that sit on opposite ends of the axis. Wow. Definitely dual right there. Could be potentially powerful. Bigender, feeling of having two genders either at the same time or separately. I would say this was powerful, but it says it's usually described as traditional male and traditional female, but it doesn't have to be. If it doesn't have to be, you could combine like the two strongest genders and just party hard. Biogender, a gender that feels connected to nature in some way. You're basically Swamp Thing at that point, so pretty OP. Blur gender, the feeling of having more than one gender that is somehow blurred together to the point of not being able to distinguish or identify individual genders. So you could just merge, kind of like a Dragon Ball fusion. Boy flux, when one feels mostly or all male most of the time, but sometimes not. That's not powerful at all. Burst gender, gender that comes in intense bursts of feeling, quickly fades back to original states. Very rare you reach your full power, so I'm going to say it's kind of weak. Kyle gender, a gender which shares qualities with outer space or has the aesthetic of space, stars, nebulas, etc. Potentially like star level, black hole level. That's pretty awesome. Caste gender, the feeling of gender is unimportant to you. Big facts. Caste flux, when the level of indifference towards your gender fluctuates. Cavus gender, for people with depression. Whatever. Sen gender, when your gender changes between one and its opposite. Hetero-fluid, when you are hetero-gender and your feelings fluctuate between masculine, feminine, and neutral. Hetero-gender and non-binary gender with specific masculine, feminine, or neutral feelings. Cisgender, the feeling of being the gender you were assigned at birth all the time. Cloud gender, I'll stop when I see one that's strong. Cloud gender, gender that cannot be fully realized or seen clearly due to derealization disorder. Weak sauce. Call gender, the feeling of having too many genders simultaneously to describe each one. That's pretty powerful. You're like Rogue at that point. You're just collecting people's power. Color gender, a gender associated with one or more colors and the feeling, hues, emotions, and or objects associated with that color. So like white gender, if it's like a white lantern, you'd basically be like the lantern core. Commo gender, when you know you aren't cisgender, but you settled with your assigned gender for the time being, so you're just kind of playing it by ear at that point. Condi gender, a gender that is only felt during certain circumstances. Delicia gender, from the Latin word delicia meaning favorite. Basically, you pick your favorite gender. That's pretty powerful, depending on what your favorite gender is. Demi-fluid, the feeling your gender being fluid throughout all the demi-genders. Multiple genders, some static, some fluid. Could be powerful depending on what's in your wheelhouse. Demi-flux, the feeling of having multiple genders, some static, some fluctuating. Seems to be the same thing. Alright, I'm going to skip the ones that seem to be the same thing. Dom gender, having more than one gender, but one's more dominant than the others. Could be powerful depending on the dominant one. Demi-smoke, demi-vapor, a transcendental spiritual gender, roughly drifting to other genders that are unable to be foreseen and understood. Oh, Yeah, they're both transcendental. I'm gonna go at least higher dimensional tiering, possibly outerversal. Ego gender, gender that's so personal that it can only be described as you, so you're the embodiment of gender. That's pretty powerful. Epicene. Usually feminine, basically. Espigender, gender that is related to being a spirit or exists on a higher or extra dimensional plane. Son, you're at least 4D. Let's get this money. Espigender is OP, at least 4D. Exgender, the outright refusal to accept or identify anything in the gender spectrum. So if you exist outside of the gender spectrum, you're outerversal for sure. Existigender, a gender that only exists or present whenever you feel it. Female, femme fluid, femme gender, basically those are all feminine. Fluid flux is a combination of gender fluid. Gimme gender, having two opposite genders that work together. Depending on your fused genders, it could be OP. Gender blank, it's just blank. Gender flow, a gender that is fluid between infinite feelings. No, not that strong. It's just infinite feelings. But the fact that you can count and go through infinite feelings is pretty impressive. By the way, drop a like button for me having to go through all of these. This is insane. Gender fluid, we've been through that, I think. Gender flux, gender fuzz. Yeah, we've already read that. A lot of these seem almost repeat. Gender punk, a gender identity that actively resists gender norms. Gender queer, non-binary, essentially. Gender witched, a gender in which one is intrigued or entranced by the idea of a particular gender, but they're not sure they're actually feeling it. Not that strong. Girl flux, not that strong for obvious reasons. Ha! Woman joke. Glass gender, very sensitive and fragile gender, probably the weakest so far. Glimmer gender, a faintly shining, wavering gender. That's pretty weak too. Gray gender, you exist outside of the binary, but is weak and can barely be felt. I was excited, but it says it's weak. Gyra gender, having multiple genders but understanding none of them. Basically useless power. Heel gender, a gender that once realized, so like true form, brings lots of peace, clarity, security, and creativity to the individual's mind. So it's kind of like that limitless pill from the movie. Heliogender, a gender that is warm and burning. Fire hacks. Hemigender, a gender that is half one gender and half something else. Depends on what you fuse. Horogender, gender that changes over time, but the core feels the same. Hydrogender, gender which shares qualities with water, so you're a water bender. Empirigender, fluid gender that can be controlled by the individual depending on what is fluid about it. Could be OP. Intergender, the feeling of gender falling somewhere on the spectrum between masculine and feminine. Juxera, feminine gender. It's basically final form feminism. Libra gender, a gender that feels a gender but has a strong connection to another gender. Maggie gender. We kind of, if it's from now on, if it's pretty much something we've already read, I'm gonna skip it. Mask fluid, a gender that is fluid in nature and restricted only to masculine gender, so any man gender passes. Maverick, you have a gender that's separate from, it's outside the bounds of masculinity, femininity, and neutrality, but it is not a gender. It's somewhere in between. Mirror gender, a gender that changes to fit the people around you. Ultimate spy jutsu right there. Good God. Multigender, a gender that is soft, subtle, and subdued. Multigender, I've already done that. Nanogender, small parts of a gender with the rest something else. Neutral gender, non-binary. Ooh. Omnigender, the feeling of having more than one simultaneous or fluctuating gender. So you can just spam multiple genders at once. Pangender, you have every gender. It's considered problematic in the community because it's overpowered, basically. But pangender should be the strongest because you have everything. It embodies all. Paragender, you're not fully one gender, but you're close to it. Paragender, identifying with the gender but not as a gender. Polygender, basically I already read that. Proxphere, final form boy. Koi gender, feeling as if the concept of gender is inapplicable or nonsensical. So you transcend gender altogether. Subgender, mostly a gender with a bit of another gender. Surgender, have a gender that is 100% one gender, but with more genders within a multiple system. Or no, more on top of that, it's layers. System gender is the one where you have a system of it. Could be strong, depending on what you fuse. Trugender, gender that stretches over the whole spectrum of genders. It's not outside and doesn't envelop, it just stretches along. Transgender, we know that one. Trigender, 3 genders at once, depends on what you fuse, could be strong. Vapogender, you're basically smoke, so you're going to be hard to kill. Vengender, when 2 genders overlap, creating a new gender, so you fuse new concepts. Varigender, gender that seems to shift, change the moment it's identified. That's pretty beastly, so you could potentially go through every gender. Vibragender, it basically fluctuates. Vossigender, gender that is weak or hollow. That's pretty weak, pun intended. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. Let me know which one you thought was the most OP, which one you thought was the weakest, which one you thought was the most interesting. Hopefully YouTube doesn't flag this for being so beastly. Thank you guys for subscribing. We're at 2K, hoping to build upon that. I just launched a website for Powerscaling, comic books, and all that other stuff. I'm going to post about 2 new things a day. Go ahead, it's in the description. Go ahead, go peep it, support it. Join the Patreon or PayPal to support both the channel and the website. You know, kind of keep me going, help be a part of the movement, help it grow. Anyways, it's been your boy Sir Splash. Like, subscribe, comment. Thanks for the 2K, and I will see y'all later. Peace.